what you see right in front of you is just your external eyes. Like, what do your inner eyes see? Like what's right beyond that? And that's always where like the gift is. That's when you see like why this is happening. That's where you see your opportunities. That's where you see the gold. That's where you see the magic. And a lot of the times what you see is a reflection of you and like why you're doing what you're doing, and then that reminds you and you're like, oh, right. Okay. That's right. So let me just take a moment and then have this moment work for me.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, and today I am very grateful. I'm very grateful for you guys to be tuning in week after week, supporting this podcast grow. In fact, if you haven't already done so, you could help it grow more by rating the podcast with 5 stars at ratethispodcast.com/Thrive State. And if you haven't already, also pick up my book at thrivestatebook.com. You won't regret it. It's going to get you feeling your very best. Today with me, I have a very special guest. She is a soul sister. I met her a couple years ago, and she's been nothing but love and support in my life. And you'll find her story very, very powerful. And her synthesis of her life and work, you're going to find to be mind-blowing. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Serena Poon. Serena Poon is a nutritional energy practitioner in which she fuses her expertise as a celebrity chef, nutritionist, and Reiki master to serve her A-list clientele. Serena Loves was launched in 2019, a lifestyle brand, blog, and TV show that encompasses all the pillars of optimal health and well-being. This is achieved through her method of culinary alchemy, which is a combination of education, integrative and functional nutrition, and healing energy. She is also the founder of Just Add Water, a wellness line of super nutrient foods and supplements. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear soul sister, Serena Poon. Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely, my soul sister, Serena Poon. Thank you for being on the Thrive State Podcast, sister.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited. I just love seeing your face. I love being able to chat whenever we can. And I'm so grateful for you. So thank you for having me.
You know what? There's so much we can talk about today. We can talk about food and food as medicine. We could talk about energy. We could talk about stress reduction. We could talk about chakras and energy. So we're just going to see where this flows because you're such a wealth of information, such a good resource for all those things I just mentioned. And if we don't get to it all today, we might just need to have you back.
A part 2? Yeah, I'm excited. Let's just dive in. We could talk about anything, honestly. Like, I'm really open, and whatever you think your audience would love to hear about, I'm here to share.
Well, we want to know how you got to where you're at now. And I know that you went through your own journey with your father that actually started you on the path of food as medicine. So let's start there.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, for those people who don't know me yet, it's my daddy and my mom. So their journey with cancer was really my inspiration to start diving into food as medicine and nutrition and just like what we could do with what we had in front of us that we weren't doing anything with yet. My senior year in college, my daddy was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer, and he did chemo and radiation, but he was also doing Chinese medicine because he was drinking these teas. I'm sure you know, like those gnarly teas that smell up the entire block, and getting all this stuff shipped in from our relatives who are in Hong Kong and China. But he still was experiencing so much discomfort, and so much pain, and clearly what he was doing wasn't working. So I started to dive into like plants and herbs and things I had seen and read about, but like we weren't using. And that's kind of how it started. And then, my daddy was a foodie. Like, he wanted to retire one day and open up a mom and pop, like kind of a restaurant with my mom. And that was sort of like a dream for him, like a retirement passion project. And so, it was so hard watching him go through this process, this journey with cancer, and not be able to eat anything,
Yeah.
not be able to find comfort in the things that he loved to eat. And he was such a foodie. So that was really kind of where that inspiration came from. It was just like, how can we use food as medicine, not just to heal the body, but to heal the soul? Like how can we use that energy of love, like, through the vehicle of food? So I went to culinary school, studied, the culinary arts, and then also would just continue to study nutrition. And I was actually studying nutrition in college, but it was more just out of curiosity, like I love to eat. I want to know what I'm putting inside me
Yeah.
to this happened. And then realizing that there was so much more that I didn't yet know, that it felt like none of us knew, like my family didn't know, his doctors, my mom's doctors, they didn't know. That became my journey. But then, of course, along the way, what I didn't factor in was self-care, right? Like
Yeah.
self-care, self-love, like all of that, which I know you're so familiar with because you're
Yeah.
so busy. I say busy in quotes because I don't like to use that word that often now. That's in part of my evolution as well. I like to say full and blessed, but you get busy, and I was so focused on taking care of other people, my family, and clearly had been traumatized by this situation with my family and my parents.
Sure.
Was like, I can't have anyone else get sick, can't have anyone else die. Like, so all that matters is other people being healthy and happy, and I'll do whatever it takes, to have that, which actually ended up meaning self-sacrificing, and just not taking care of myself, which led me to have some health issues. Had just so much inflammation in my body. I ended up having to have surgery to remove some damaged tissue that was in my chest from all the stress and inflammation, and just not even putting myself last. I'm going to be really honest. I wasn't even on the list. Like putting myself
Yeah.
last would probably have been a step up from just like wasn't even on the list, and literally even offered up self-sacrifice as a means to bringing more like joy or love or support to the people I cared about. So I ended up having surgery to remove this tissue, got MRSA
Yeah.
from that surgery. That became, a massive part of my journey for the next 8 years. And after my fourth surgery of just continually trying to get this infection out, because MRSA is a deadly staph infection, really resistant to most antibiotics. And you could probably tell them more about it, than I can, you being our resident doctor genius here. But after my fourth surgery of trying to get this stubborn bacteria out, I almost died. I had a massive hematoma 12 days post-op, lost like 2 liters of blood. And it was, that was like my next big pivot, like I think the first shift came with my dad and my mom. And then this one, it was just this whole like, whoa, what did I start doing this for in the first place? I
Yeah.
started this career as a chef, trying to help heal people and trying to help them feel better, but leaving myself out and working so hard. And why am I doing this in the first place? And so I was in a place where that had happened. I wasn't able to use the upper left side of my body it was for about 6 months, but at the time I didn't know how long it was going to take for me to heal. So I had to figure out how I was going to make a living because I couldn't cook, I couldn't really use
Yeah.
an arm. And I ended up really opening up my nutritional practice. But even in that process, and as I was healing and healing myself, I realized there was something missing, you know, exercising until that point where I really couldn't even move that much after that surgery. But up till that point, I'd been doing the right things, still had those MRSA, still had inflammation, eating all the right foods, and still didn't feel optimal. And that was when I dived into spirituality and like energy work, and
Yeah.
started talking to this master healer who's in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and committed to just talking to her every 3 to 4 weeks, no different than how I go to the gym. So I was going to the gym, exercising my physical body, putting in the right nutrients in, exercising that practice, but then missing something, and not really having a spiritual practice. So I did that. And after about 8 months, she was like, I want you to fly out here, and I'm like, what? She's like, I want you to come out and stay with me. And I want to teach you everything that I know. She's like, I'm about 70. And, at the time she was 70, I think, or she was turning 71. And she was like, she felt like she was ascending and ready to leave the 3-dimensional world and wanted to be able to like have an apprentice. And I thought she was out of her mind. I'm like, wait, you're my master, you're my healer. Like I can't do what you do. Again, right? Storytelling. And it took me months. And then finally I flew out there and she taught me what she did. She taught me everything she did for me when we were doing healing work distally, what she did for other clients. It was like an intensive like boot camp. And then I came back and I realized I needed like some structure. Like I needed, this is like how Noel did it, but like I needed like maybe books, or I needed something to reference. That's how I learned. And I decided to study Reiki. That's how that element really kind of came into not just my life, but into my practice. Because I realized that, wait, if we can support our energetic body through food as well, like our energetic centers and our organ systems, they kind of align. So that kind of brought me to my practice, and then, but still hadn't really done that inner work, right? That we talk about so much, that's when Tony Robbins came into my life, where I sought this out and started diving into personal development only really in the last like 2 years, right? Like before that, I'd just been doing the healing work and the energy work, different type of journey. But there's always something a little bit more. And once you have everything tied in together, like that's where I am now. So I'm sorry, like 10 minutes to tell you that story.
Well, that's a
But
very beautiful story. And for anybody who's listening right now, at any point in our lives, we could always look back and say, this is a bump in the road and it sucks. But as I'm listening to your journey, every little struggle along the path allowed you to kind of evolve into the next version of yourself as you pivoted. And now you've got, all these new skill sets that you can bring. And, we are always the gift, but this gift gets to evolve and evolve and evolve throughout. And, those 10 minutes are beautiful, because for anybody listening, those struggles are really, the sandpaper for our awakening. Now you get to share. Is this what Culinary Alchemy is all about? Is it food, nutrition, energy work all tied together?
yeah, I mean, that's really basically what that is. Culinary alchemy is what I call like my healing method, and it's my practice where I'm working with people directly in it. But it is that, it's food. It's really what I think is so important is beyond the recipe, it's the education, around food, food and nutrition, like where it comes from. And then obviously that energetic component to it. I do it with Reiki, but everything has a frequency. All food, everything that we have, everything has a frequency, and there's an energy that's connected to food when you understand that it's more than just something that you put in your mouth because you're hungry. Like if
Yes.
you see it differently, there's a different transfer of energy and your body receives differently. And so when you can very mindfully nurture your energetic body and your physiological body, like together, like at the same, all collectively, you really have the opportunity to empower yourself, not just, your emotional body, but clearly your physical body. And it's like your whole self. So that's what it is.
That's beautiful. And you are definitely, talking my language. I mean, in my book, Thrive State, I just talk about that our DNA responds to all these different energies that they're interacting with moment to moment to moment. And those energies just aren't, what you see in the textbooks. It's not just sleep, nutrition, and exercise, but you've got the physical stuff, you've got the emotional stuff, you've got the mental stuff, as well as the spiritual stuff. All that is energy that's always in a dynamic interplay with our DNA that really informs our health.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another reason why I love your book so much. It's just like we just resonate on that. And I feel like you make it so clear to people. And it's just something that's there. It's always been there, but sometimes we don't realize. And when someone can really break it down and make it so clear, and you can apply it to yourself in your life, it's game changing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now I want to really give people some practical tips as to how they could be a little bit more mindful of their daily practices. And I
Mhm.
know you treat each meal almost like a ceremony. And I find that it's beautiful to create ceremony around it because you want to prep your body to receive. So can you walk through what a, meal prepping ceremony looks like with you?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. Thank you. I would say I kind of start with what I tell people to do at the beginning of their day. Like before you even get out of bed, before you even go downstairs to have that warm lemon water that I tell everybody, if whether you're a client or someone that I'm connecting with on social, is so important. Before you even do that, when you're connecting with gratitude, because many of us have a gratitude practice in the morning and in the evening, I kind of want you to take it a step further. You're not just kind of going through what you're grateful for and acknowledging it, but I want you to connect to something that you're grateful for, a person, a thing, a dessert, whatever it is, but connect to that until you feel it. Like there's almost like a physiological response to it. It's almost visceral. Like you start to feel the warmth emanating from your heart when you think about your love, or your children, or maybe you're thinking about that apple pie that your mom used to make that you only have once a year because that's when you go see her and she makes it. And then you start to like feel that warmness in your mouth, and you can almost smell it, and you do. That's how much I want you to really connect with something that you're grateful for, because that energy, that connection you've now made with your mind and your body, that's what you're going to take to your food. That's what you're going
Yes.
to take to anything that you put into your body and into the body of others and the people that you love. Like that frequency, that energy, that's love. And that's what you can now infuse into the water that you're going to have next, or your coffee or tea or smoothie or whatever it is. And that's what you're putting into that's what you're putting into the preparation of food. And so, it sounds almost like silly, and it's so easy, but that's the thing. It's not supposed to be that hard to live, abundantly, and with peace, and just, abundance in every sense of the word, right? You just have to like be really present and take that moment to really savor like what you have in front of you. So I use a carrot as an example all the time because I feel like we take carrots for granted, you know, like it's everywhere. You can find it anywhere in the world. It doesn't cost very much, and it doesn't seem like it's that special. It comes from the dirt, but really carrots are pretty magical. They come from the dirt. So they're connected to earth energy. They're extremely grounding and soothing for your sacral and your root chakra. And it has all these vitamins that are so incredible for your body. And if you honor that carrot, sounds so silly, but if you honor that carrot in the preparation process, and when it goes into your body actually receives the nutrients from that carrot even more so. And it's also preparing your body to digest. So when you're in that practice and that routine of like, okay, I'm going to take that energy I connected with earlier today, this morning, and I'm going to put that energy, I'm going to transfer that energy into my smoothie right now, or my breakfast, or my lunch. You're actually, in a way, shifting your mind and your body into a state to receive.
Yes.
If you even were in a sympathetic state, you are shifting into a parasympathetic state. Like your body is starting to release, the biochemicals within you to prepare yourself to now receive that food, to digest it, to absorb those nutrients. And it all just comes from that simple practice. And as long as you can apply it everywhere, everything becomes ceremonious, right?
That is so beautiful. And, sometimes people talk about all this and they feel like it's very woo woo. But as the medical doctor here, and I'm going to throw out my credentials. Yes, I'm an assistant clinical professor at UCLA. What she's saying is 100% true. And there's scientific evidence that the emotion of gratitude is one of the most highest vibrational emotions, but it's actually anti-aging medicines. Gratitude actually lowers inflammation. It actually increases your immune system. And it also acts to lengthen your telomeres, which is an anti-aging effect for your cells.
Yeah.
What she's also saying is when we start to eat in states of stress, which what I used to do before, because I only had like a 10-minute lunch, I needed to eat before I saw the next patient, or I used to eat in the car. When you're in that when you're in the sympathetic state, your body's under stress. What does it do to your digestion? Well, you're not going to produce the mucus to be able to, have the food slide down. That's where a lot of leaky gut comes from. So if you're not in that, if you're in a stress state when you're eating, you're not going to absorb the food very well, and the food and the nutrients, or actually the toxins actually pass through your gut, and it's actually a very inflammatory way to eat, even if you're eating healthy food.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, and that's why I think some people don't understand, oh, I'm eating all the right foods, I'm doing all the right things, but it's just like, well, here, you can just add this one simple practice to what you're already doing. It doesn't cost you anything. It's really not added time because you're already spending time to prepare your food. But yeah, and you're already eating. So let's shift a little bit and connect with that energy. And now you've optimized what you're already doing.
That's a very beautiful practice. You know what? It feels like I'm going to be asking you a lot of how-tos, because these practical steps are so easy that I want the audience to know more of it. So do you have anything in particular, like your go-tos for anxiety and stress?
So, I mean, in terms of so two things. There are some herbs that are really, really great for that. And you can get them in the form of a tea. You can get them like dehydrated and sort of put it into like broths and, make your own super teas out of it. You can get them in supplemental form, and that's ashwagandha, holy basil. These are like, I'm going to give those two because they're really simple go-tos that are very accessible just about anywhere. You don't have to find them in specialty stores. And the beautiful thing is you can have them in different ways. So you can have them in a supplement, you can have them in a raw powdered form where you can put it in a smoothie, a drink, or something like that. We have it in just add water. They're like called adaptogens, basically.
Yes.
And so these are like herbs and plants and roots that you can have that will help soothe and calm you down. There's also like lavender and chamomile. I'm just, again, throwing out really basic things, easily accessible type of herbs and adaptogens that are really helpful. I would also say passion flower. So that's not as common, but it's great for sleep because what it does, it helps to calm and soothe your mind, so, and GABA, of course. So that's another one. But if you're talking about foods, then I would say things that are grounding are really good for soothing anxiety and stress, because when you're feeling stressed out or anxious or you're typically feeling ungrounded. So part of my practice with Culinary Alchemy is, again, focusing on those energy centers, right? So you're focusing on, and when I talk energy centers, for everyone listening who aren't familiar with that term, I'm talking about like your chakras, your chakra system. So focusing on your first, second, and third energy centers or chakras and giving support to those areas. And that would be having grounding foods. So grounding would be, having foods that come from the earth, like literally from the dirt, right? So you're thinking about like sweet potatoes or, root vegetables. That's why carrots are great, root vegetables. And and with the minerals that are in these vegetables, it actually, again, helps to calm and ground you. Magnesium calms people and soothes people a lot. Yeah. So, you'll find that these type of foods are high in terms of the mineral content. And so you don't realize it, but having those root vegetables can actually kind of soothe you physiologically. So yeah, so those would be some great ones. And I always, I talk about eating the rainbow, but it's for different reasons. It's because when you align with the colors of the rainbows, it's just like a super easy thing to remember instead of like remembering a list of vegetables, or fruits. I just tell people, remember the rainbow. So, like the colors red and orange and yellow, these are foods that will help soothe you and ground you, kind of bring you back to center. Grains and legumes, if you're someone that does grains and legumes, those are also very centering and grounding foods that can help you when you're in a state.
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by Thrive State MD Immunity Supplement. I actually developed this supplement at the start of the coronavirus pandemic. As some of you may know, I'm a frontline healthcare worker and have worked directly with COVID-19 patients. Some of you may also know that during that time, my fiance was pregnant with my daughter. I had a bonus daughter at home, and I also had elderly parents I needed to protect. I wanted to serve my patients at the highest level while making sure that the people around me were safe. And I couldn't find a product that was out there that actually had quality ingredients at meaningful dosages that would keep my immune system operating at its optimal form. I ended up having to buy supplements from multiple different sources to get the right quality, the right quantity, and the right formulation of an immune product I know would keep me safe. And while I never got sick using that formulation, it costed me hundreds and hundreds of dollars. The Thrive State Immunity Formula is a premium immune formula designed to enhance the body's own natural immune defenses. It is a unique blend of well-researched vitamins, minerals, and medicinal mushrooms, including vitamin C and D3, zinc, quercetin, astragalus, cordyceps, reishi, turkey tail, and beta-glucan. Kaya is now born. She's 2 months old as of the time of this recording. I'm still continuing to serve by treating COVID-19 patients, and I feel really confident about my immune system, applying the techniques outlined in my book, Thrive State, and taking the Thrive State MD immunity supplement. If you haven't already, pick up my book at thrivestatebook.com. And if you would like an immunity supplement of your own, the listeners of the Thrive State podcast get 20% off by using the code THRIVE20. Remember, you are your best medicine. Now let's get back to the episode. Oh, that's beautiful. What do you have for sleep? Are there foods that will help enhance sleep, or are there practices that you like to do to kind of promote that?
Yeah, great question with sleep. I mean, there's lots of things, I talked about. I like to have, well, there's again rituals, right? Just as you wake to start your day, to really optimize your day, ground yourself into the day and have the best possible day. Like, you have to kind of do the opposite, when you're getting ready for sleep. And so, having that practice, having it almost, again, something almost ceremonious. Some people like to take baths, some people just like to unwind with a hot cup of tea. People do different things. For me, I love having that cup of tea, before bed. Obviously, we talk a lot about reducing the amount of blue light exposure that you have, because obviously that keeps your mind awake, and the amount of caffeine that you have after a certain time of the day. We have a mutual friend, the sleep doctor, Dr. Bruce, and he has very set, ways of preparing for sleep, and it works for most people. And I think you have to kind of know like your sleep type, right? The type of, like, your body type, and he calls them chronotypes. But I think that there's so much to be said just about the ritual, because when you have a ritual or practice that you do on a regular basis, if you can, some people have erratic travel schedules, maybe not so much now, but in general. So it's kind of hard. Having a few key practices just teaches your mind that to think, I'm supposed to get ready to turn off now. Like, it tells your body, okay, I'm supposed to go into a rest and reset state now. So having like a simple practice. So for me, like, I love my tea, and I also like listening to a certain type of music. So, like different frequencies. So say 528, is a frequency that's great for just sort of like healing and allowing your cells to just kind of like detox and rest, and there's different frequencies, there's like 417, there's all these different frequencies. We can probably talk about that in another episode, but I love that. So I love listening to meditative music or certain frequencies that kind of prepares my mind, and it eases me into a place where I know I'm going to rest. And I also love breath work. That's another.
Right.
So
You mentioned tea. What teas are you drinking for sleep?
Passion flower is a great tea. Holy basil, which is one of the herbs that I had, and the adaptogenic herbs that I'd mentioned earlier, that's another soothing tea. So holy basil with rose, I love. And that's all obviously like non-caffeinated. I love actually milk thistle and dandelion teas because they help your body detox while you sleep. So that's another one. Lavender I love. And so these are just all, and you can find them in different combinations. But I would say my favorite is that holy basil rose tea. It's just like
Ooh.
super soothing, and I don't know. It's just like it kind of gets you in that mood and that mode. Like if you're gonna do like thoughtful writing or journaling, like have some holy basil rose tea with like, or tulsi tea. It's like the Ayurvedic name for it. So tulsi tea, the candle, like we have our candle, and I just love the scent of it. It's like very, again, soothing. That's what I like. And then and passion flower is something that works well. Jujubes, those are like dates. If you don't have any issues with blood sugar, it's a little bit on the sweeter side, but it's another one of those fruits that can help ease you into sleep. Anything with tart cherry juice that helps, that's got natural melatonin in it. So anything that has natural melatonin, or like GABA, that helps you produce melatonin in your body, is helpful for sleep. So tart cherry juice is actually what some of my clients really love, because they feel like it's almost like a treat, even though it is it's a bit sour, so it's on the tart side, but it's helpful for sleep. Banana, so anything that's high in magnesium. So if you want to have a little bit of banana, or you want to do that banana peel tea
Oh
that
yeah.
some of us
Dr. Michael Bruce talks about that.
Bruce, yeah. And so that it's because there's that the peel has such a high content of magnesium, which again is something that helps to soothe our mind and kind of ease us into a state of just relaxing and resting. So that's helpful too if you've never tried it. And it's a very holistic, simple thing you can do. Even if you can't find these teas, you can pretty much find bananas almost anywhere. Organic bananas preferably, since you are using the outside of the peel.
Yeah. Well, great. You have talked about this publicly before. And right now, I have so many people still questioning whether or not the pandemic is real, the coronavirus is real, and all of that. But I know that you have gone through your experience with it. Tell us a little bit about the experience and your perspective on what's happening now around the world with it.
So as you know, because you, my dear friend, helped me during during this time, I had COVID at the very kind of beginning of the pandemic. So my sister got it right at the beginning of March in 2020, and she was quite sick actually. And then I got it from her, about 2 weeks into her being sick. She started kind of get better by her third into her fourth week. And then I actually ended up having it for about 8 weeks. It really shifted gears in me at about 5.5 weeks. And it was just sort of like lingering. So, what I would say is we had it during a time that it was at the height of the unknown, at the height
Yeah.
of that fear. I mean, it was almost apocalyptic, especially here in LA and in all different parts of the world. People didn't know if they needed to stock up on food and water. And as you know, because you're a physician, people were short on medical supplies and had no idea how this virus was being spread. So, is coronavirus a real thing? It's a real thing. It's absolutely a real thing. My sister and I had two completely different experiences, which I found very interesting, even though we were quarantined together. Her symptoms were quite acute. She actually had a fever for like 12 days that didn't break. And I had the opposite, low grade fevers, but I did lose my sense of smell and taste. I actually still have some long haul symptoms, Kien. I don't know if
Mm.
we haven't really talked about that much, but some cognitive like issues that I've had since then. So what I would say is, it's definitely a real thing. Not everyone gets it, even if they've been exposed. We don't 100% know why. And people have different responses to it. Some people get very, very ill where they have to go to the hospital and they need really intense treatment by from the medical professionals, and some people can recover at home, and some people have very little symptoms or completely no symptoms at all. And I think that that's just something that as we go into the future with more time and more data and research into it, we might be able to figure out. In my opinion, so much of your recovery process, if you don't have severe pre-existing conditions, and I clearly had some pre-existing conditions. I mean, I had MRSA in my body for 8+ years and only really got it out of my body a year before COVID, and so part of my experience actually exacerbated some symptomatic things that my body was doing, before, when I had the MRSA in there. But I would say so much of it is truly your mindset.
Yeah.
So much of it is like the mental health around it. And I know it's so hard to really be fully grounded in that and in a space where you can help heal yourself with your mentality, because there's so many unknowns, right? And we're getting all kinds of information and misinformation, and there seems to be a lot of agendas out there, right?
Yeah.
But your mindset is one of the most powerful driving factors behind your immune system.
Yeah.
And as Kien already said, our leaky gut, I mean, our gut and our mind, there's an access there and it's completely connected. So absolutely taking care of your health so that you're not just taking care of yourself when you're sick, it
Yeah.
is a state of being, and there is an element of honoring your body, as this vessel that serves you for so little that you actually have to do for. We are the most complicated, you know, systems that exist, how our bodies work with all our cells, and yet it functions, and we eat and we sleep and we, ideally put good nutrition into our body, and we move, and here this massively complicated system works. I think that the most important thing for people to remember is that you are completely empowered to take care of your body.
Yeah.
Our bodies are designed to heal. And so if you can allow that, and you can, get into a place where you keep your mental health strong as best you can, and lean into support, from your community and the people that know you and love you, and also lean into the faith that we are incredible systems, incredible machines that have the ability to heal if we allow ourselves to do that. So again, I'm sorry if that's a little bit of a long answer to your question, but that's kind of the crux of it, because we were sick at a really kind of scary time, and it was like, well, we're just going to get better. We have tools at our fingertips, and it was we were never scared, although I was concerned. And I remember calling you, Kien, and I remember saying, here's where my sister's at. What can we do? And you helped me by recommending some peptides to me. So, I would say that even for people who didn't have that, even for people who just kind of had their vitamin C, your body will take in whatever it is that you'll give it and use that as an empowering piece of information. And so instead of thinking you don't have everything that you need should you become sick, and you might not, but that you have what you have at your fingertips, and just know that you can heal. And again, if you don't have some severe pre-existing condition. So
Yeah, what a beautiful journey. And thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable with it. But I think what you mentioned in terms of mindset, I almost kind of believe that maybe the universe has gifted us with the COVID virus just so for us to be able to recognize the power we have within to take care of our health, the resilience we have as human beings to be able to look at this struggle and overcome it, because of the faith of who we are and that we are healing beings. And so just thank you for sharing that story and being an example for that. And one of the things I was so impressed about, because the mindset works, you came out of it, but you didn't only just come out of it. I know you mentioned you having a few lingering symptoms, but I mean, your business and your presence has really, really gone out to the world. And you shared your journey so vulnerably. And if you guys haven't checked out, Serena goes live several times every week. Go check out her Instagram, which you'll see in the show notes. But she really connects with all the people, her audience, so well. And she is literally glowing. And she has like the top guests in health and wellness come on. So check it out. So my question to you is this. I mean, you did this all during the pandemic, and you've met all these awesome people who've been on. And I was so fortunate to be on myself. But after talking to them, what were like the best gems that you've gotten from your guests, like the best biohacking, tips or whatnot that you picked up after meeting so many beautiful people this past year?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And nobody's asked me that question. And I love that. So thank you. And thank you for being one of those gems, like being on the show is definitely a gem. I would say that pretty much every one of these thought leaders, yourself included, in the health and wellness space really all came from the same perspective of like strength, and I love that you really kind of like focus on just us as humans, just human resistance and like the ability to pivot and to thrive. And I would say that every single functional medicine doctor, every single physician, every single healer that came on really came from the same space. Whereas this is not what's going to take us down. Like we are powerful, and that we're resilient, and we can thrive, and we can heal. And there's this universal energy, whether we call it's love, but whatever it is that you want to call it, like this connects all of us, and this is what keeps us on top. And so every person came in with just reminders about how you can continue to empower yourself. Some people talked about intermittent fasting. There was a lot of talk around sleep. There was a lot of talk, and I will be the first to admit that I could probably sleep a lot more. With so many practices, I'm always like going. And it's like, oh, it's late. It's time for me to have my tea and a wine and go to bed, with an early start the next day. But sleep is a powerful, powerful tool for not just our physical functioning bodies, but also, our that kind of etheric, your higher self as well. A lot to talk about that. A lot to talk about fasting and meditation. So whether it's meditation, there's different types of meditation, but that mindful work. So energy work. People ask me about Reiki, what Reiki really is. And there's all different modalities. And as energy workers, as healers, as like whatever it is you want to call it, essentially we're all kind of doing the same thing. And my big thing is reminding every person that I talk to that they can do that as well. You can call it Reiki or something else. You can get certified or not. If you're not a practitioner, it's one thing. If you're just doing it for yourself and to heal yourself, like we can all have that ability to channel energy. So one of the things that have come out of it very strongly is just this awareness that people have about energy as a tool for their health, for their mind, because people were sitting at home and couldn't go to your gym, and you couldn't go do the things outside of your immediate space to relieve stress. You had to either work at home and do it there, or you had to get still. And I
Yeah.
think that stillness is one of the most powerful, call it biohacking, call it whatever, like one of the most powerful reminders that the pandemic has given us, because you don't need to buy it. You don't need to do anything special for it except to create space.
Yeah.
And so the pandemic created an enormous amount of space for people to really reconnect with that. And that in and of itself is like the most powerful healing tool. You kind of apply it to everything. So yeah, so that's what I would say. And just again, mindset with some of my guests have been one of the most powerful reminders, because really staying focused on what we talked about, human resilience, that we've been here before, just maybe not in our current lives, that we always get to the other side of it, and that we will heal, and that there will be growth, and where there's darkness, there's always light, and this is part of the journey. So that came through from most every one of my guests that I would consider like a visionary, or a thought leader. It's just being able to continue to look forward, past what's here, so that you can create what you see in the future. And
That's awesome.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Now, before I ask you my last question, I know you've got lots of stuff going on. I know you got an app coming out, a supplement line coming out, some wellness programs. Can you give us a very short synopsis as to all that and where people can find you?
Okay, yes, thank you so much. So yes, so I have an app, and the app basically and I have a program coming out. It's gonna be one of 12. But this program is really about stressing less, sleeping better, and slimming down. So, and you can do it in 28 days. And so that program will actually be powered through this app, and the app will power all the programs that you can get eventually. And along with it are recommendations, with like supplement recommendations, but you'll have your meal plan and recipes and a shopping list, and just daily messages for me, and a gratitude journal, and some meditations. But that really kind of helps you. It's a self-paced program. They're all self-paced, where it takes you through this journey, and you can sync it up with your Fitbit or your Apple Watch to kind of track, because I want to know how much water you're drinking. So all these things will be tracked with supplement recommendations. And Just Add Water is going to have 5 new SKUs. So, 5 brothers and sisters from our solo hero product that we've had for the last couple of years that will also be part of our launch. So very excited about that. You can find all the information on my website and on my Instagram. So my website is serenaloves.com, or you can just go to my Instagram, which is Chef Serena Poon, and that kind of links you to everything. There's a lot in the link tree, you guys. So you might have to scroll, but
well, that's just because you're doing so much. I am so proud of you. The last question is this. I mean, you've lived an amazing life. What would you say has been your best medicine?
Oh, wow. What a great question. These are great questions. My best medicine, honestly, it's just been going back to myself, like tuning back to myself, like remembering what my mission is, like why, when I'm going through really tough times, and we all continue to, like, or if there's a challenge with business, because for example, we're so delayed with these supplements. I mean, we were going to launch back in February, and it's just delayed, and the delays are kind of like, what, really? Okay, it seems so far out there. But to just trust that the delay is for me, that the delay is serving me somehow. And it always does. And so I think that really comes from having gone to a place of surrender. And that happened, when I nearly died that night, and that experience. And then it happened, a couple other times. One other time when I was recovering from my second to last major surgery for the MRSA. And it was just kind of remembering that there's always so much more than what we think we see right in front of us.
Yeah.
And being able to just, like, I talk a lot about external, internal eyes, or having 1,000 eyes. And like what you see right in front of you is just your external eyes. Like, what do your inner eyes see? Like what's right beyond that? And that's always where like the gift is. That's when you see like why this is happening. That's where you see your opportunities. That's where you see the gold. That's where you see the magic. And a lot of the times what you see is a reflection of you, and like why you're doing what you're doing, and then that reminds you, and you're like, oh, right. Okay. That's right. So let me just take a moment and then have this moment work for me. That's and that's been a learning process.
Wow. That is so beautiful. We're going to end on that note. Serena Poon, my soul sister, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I just love you. Thank you so much.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're finding this podcast to be valuable, if you're learning a lot, please share it with your friends and family members. And please consider leaving a 5-star review at ratethispodcast.com/thrivestate. That review is really going to help the show grow. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State, at thrivestatebook.com. I would love to connect with you on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and LinkedIn at KienVuMD. Remember, you are your best medicine.